I get to the stories, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who listens. Also, if you have a story you'd like to share, be sure to check out my Discord, where you can share your stories to each other, or to be put in a video. Link is in the description, and you can find the link on the channel itself. I have to go. I'll talk to you.
On Christmas Eve, 1945, in West Virginia, George and Jenny Soddard allowed their 9 children to stay up later than the usual bedtime, as they were all excited for Christmas the next day. Jenny remembers just after midnight, the phone rang. When she answered, all that could be heard was a weird laugh. Not long after the family went to bed, they heard at 1 a.m. a large object hitting the roof with a bang. In a half an hour, they began to smell smoke. The house was then engulfed in flames, and the parents managed to rescue only 4 of the children before the entire property collapsed. The local fire department was understaffed and arrived too late to the scene. They searched the debris, but found no bones or remains of the other children. They were assumed missing. The parents paid for a large billboard, which displayed the faces of their missing children. Still, nobody offered any leads. There are many theories, from a connection to Sicilian mafia to alien activity. Still, none have helped to solve this tragic mystery. In 1958, a 10-year-old partially deaf boy named Bobby Bizup was attending a Catholic camp for boys called Camp St. Milo, that set on the border of Rocky Mountain National Park. A camp counselor found him fishing at the river and told him to come back to the camp for dinner. The boy started to follow him, and when the counselor glanced over his shoulder to double check, Bobby had disappeared. 400 people searched for 9 days, but they found no clues. 1 year later, counselors found his hearing aid and bits of torn clothing 2,000 feet up the side of the mountain. The search party had already searched that area at least 3 times the year before. None of his other remains have ever been found. In 1999, a 3-year-old boy named Jared Atadero was living with his sister and father, Alan, at the resort Jared's dad worked at in the Comanche Wilderness, which is a national park in Colorado. A Christian singles group was staying at the resort. One of the women in the group offered to take Alan's kids with them for a few hours to a local fish hatchery. They never asked Alan if they could take the children hiking as well, but they saw a sign for a nearby trail and decided at the last minute that they would go through the forest. The Christian singles were so involved in their own hikes that they had lost track of Jared, and he wandered away from the group. 2 hikers in the area saw him walking alone, but assumed his parents must be nearby. After this, he was never seen again. In 2003, 2 hikers climbed up a very steep rock face, roughly 550 feet above the trail. They found 1 child's tooth, a piece of skull, and Jared's clothes, which were fully intact. They had been taken off his body and turned inside out. There was 1 shoe, which looked brand new. Somehow, it was perfectly preserved for those 4 years. The area where his remains were found was far too difficult for a child to climb to himself. It would have been an unnecessarily difficult location for an adult kidnapper to carry him. It also doesn't line up with a bear or cougar attack pattern because the clothes would have been ripped and covered in blood. The Atadero family is still haunted by the unanswered questions. In 1923, more than 600 people vanished from the village of Hoya Verde, Brazil. Still to this day, there is no explanation for the mystery. Travelers who cut through the town discovered all the buildings, including the well-built homes, were abandoned. There were no signs of an ambush or kidnapping. Just creepily, a school blackboard which had, "There is no salvation," written in chalk. A manhunt began for the villagers. One popular theory was all the villagers fled due to the political climate in Brazil, and they feared conflict with guerrillas. Despite this theory being believable, nobody can understand how 600 people could not be found inhabiting somewhere else. Conspiracy theorists have blamed alien abduction, but again, it's another mystery that may never be explained. In 1928, newlywed couple Glenn and Bessie Hyde went on a trip down Colorado River in the Grand Canyon when they vanished, never to be seen again. The last time they were both seen alive was when they visited a photographer named Emery Cole so they could be photographed in his studio. When they failed to reappear, a search party was sent out to look for them, and although all their belongings and supplies were found, no bodies were ever recovered. There were several other strange matters to this case. In In 1971, a woman claiming to be Bessie appeared on a rafting trip and told others that she had murdered Glenn down the river and disposed of the remains. When questioned further, the woman quickly dropped her story. 5 years later, a male skeleton was found at the home of the photographer, Emery Kolb. After analysis, it was proven that the skeleton was too young to be Glenn's, and the mystery of what really happened to the couple continued. In 1979, Peter Hanchett, Benjamin Kalama, Ralph Malachini, Scott Moorman, and Patrick Woosner were close friends who decided to take a fishing trip on a sailboat called the Sarah Joe off the coast of Maui, Hawaii. When they set sail, it was the last time anyone saw them alive. 2 years later, on a deserted island known as Tahongi, approximately 2,000 miles from where the Sarah Joe crew had set sail, the boat was discovered beside a shallow grave, which also contained a human jawbone. Records showed that the jawbone belonged to Scott Moorman. A popular theory is that the Sarah Joe had been caught in a storm and made it to Tahongi Island, and the missing friends were shipwrecked. Although this fails to explain the mysterious way the jawbone was positioned alongside cryptic burial papers that represented a Chinese burial. With no other remains found, we may never know what really happened to the missing crew, Sarah Joe. In 1930, a small Inuit village near Lake Ongukuni in the Kivalliq region, Nunavut, Canada, completely disappeared. Fur trappers who were passing through the area found the entire village deserted, and there were no signs of the 25 men, women, and children who lived in the area. Belongings and supplies had been untouched, which made the case more mysterious and ruled out that the community had relocated. To add to the mystery, the bodies of 7 starved sled dogs were found, and several graves had been dug in the area, but these were unused. The fur trappers reported the missing village to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, who conducted an investigation, which has reached a dead end. Then, in a strange U-turn, the police claimed that the village had never existed, but theorists were not happy with this claim, as it doesn't explain why they had even begun the investigation in the first place. Wherever the villagers had disappeared to, nobody will ever really know. Daniel was last seen by his co-workers around 9:15 a.m. on June 23, 2021. He'd been working at a site near Sun Valley Parkway and Cactus Road near the Hassayampa River and west of the White Tank Mountains, testing groundwater. At some point, he'd gotten into his blue 2017 Jeep Renegade and drove away from the site. He didn't tell anyone where he was going or why he was leaving. That evening, a missing persons report was filed. His father was notified by Matrix New World Engineering of the situation and drove 2,000 miles from South Carolina to start searching for his son. Investigators with the Buckeye Police Department spoke with Daniel's friends and family to gather information about him and where he may have gone. They learned that in the lead to his disappearance, he'd been acting strange and seemed withdrawn, but his father shared that he had seemed back to normal by the time he went missing. Searches were conducted and local hospitals were checked. Phoenix Firebird participated in the search, as did patrol officers and detectives on 4x4 vehicles. On July 9th, 2021, the Arizona Civil Air Patrol offered its assistance. Multiple CAP aircraft were utilized, and 4 air searches were performed in conjunction with the ground effort. Unfortunately, no sign of Daniel or his vehicle were found. Investigators obtained cell phone and financial information, but weren't able to locate any information to aid in their search. They also tried to access information from his vehicle's OnStar technology, but there was no power to it. Flyers were put up on many of the gate entrances into the desert, just off Sunny Valley Parkway. Officers at Buckeye Airport were also told to share information about Daniel's disappearance with pilots, so they could keep a lookout during flights. Police were able to establish a ping from Daniel's cell phone, but were unable to obtain any location data because it was either turned off or out of range. They were able to collect limited records, but it appeared he hadn't made any calls or sent any texts after leaving the worksite. The family has come together to help keep the case in the public eye. They've created a website dedicated to the search and have organized their own searches. They also set up a GoFundMe fundraiser to help raise money to hire a private investigator, print missing person flyers, pay for hotel expenses, and help fund the continued search and rescue effort. Matrix New World Engineering has also shown support, and have publicly stated that they are concerned for Daniel's well-being. Daniel's Jeep was discovered by a cattle rancher on July 20th, 2021. It was approximately 4 miles southwest of where he'd last seen. and appeared to have rolled 20 feet down into a ravine. The airbags had been deployed, and it was determined via the vehicle's black box type recorder that he had been wearing a seatbelt at the time of the accident. The driver's side window was smashed and the front windshield cracked. Several of his personal belongings were found at the scene, including his clothes, cell phone, wallet, and keys. The clothes were found 3 feet from the vehicle, including his boots and safety vest. According to Daniel's family, investigators didn't conduct any forensic work on the Jeep, so they themselves have hired a team to analyze it. After they are finished, they will look at his computer and cell phone. Detectives have conducted a ground search in the area surrounding the vehicle, with the aid of the Department of Public Safety's Ranger helicopter, search and rescue dogs, and the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, but came up empty. The family has announced their personal investigation has moved from missing persons to a criminal investigation. However, the Buckeye Police Department did not suspect foul play in Daniel's disappearance. Based on the information found in his Jeep, his father discresses and has shared that he feels investigators are just looking to wrap the case up. There's currently a $10,000 reward being offered by the family for information leading to Daniel's return. This information has been added to the national database and disseminated all over the country, including to local law enforcement, the Bureau of Land Management, and the Arizona Game and Fish.